Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, a Kia Drive Day Special Edition. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew.
What's a special edition again, Andrew? They seem to have been slightly lacking in the last 2 years when someone's been outside of the UK. Yes.
This is the start, hopefully, of a new run of extra episodes for your enjoyment. It's not just going to be drive days or car reviews. There are other things in the pipeline as well.
So you went on a nice jolly with Kia, by the sounds of it.
I did.
What happened? What was the sort of general format? Because this isn't, we've had a car for a week. Let's talk about the colour of the bottom of the cup holders.
No, it wasn't that. I went to the actually really pretty Surrey countryside. And we were let loose with two of the new refreshed models. One is the Picanto, and right at the other end of the scale is the Sorento. We've got their smallest and their second largest for us to try out, drive around a couple of routes that they had mapped out in the sat-navs for us, which gave us a taste of a variety of roads, including urban, rural, dual carriageway, wide, A roads, B roads, all that sort of stuff. Basically what you would typically expect apart from a motorway in the UK.
Excellent. Many roads for you to helmsmith along, I'm sure.
Yes, definitely. Helmsmithing was all I did. Yeah, no. Come on, it's me.
Yeah. Go back. This Picanto GT line has a lot of tread shuffle.
Well, now you've mentioned it.
That's probably quite a good place to start, yeah.
The first one I tried was the Picanto, and this has been refreshed. It's the updated third generation. That's a 5-door city car. This one's built in Korea and imported across to here. They have got 4 trim levels. What has gone is the trim level 1. That's no longer available. So you start at 2.
Right.
Then you've got 3.
Uh-huh.
Then we have GT line.
Right.
And then there's GT line S.
Ooh. Does that mean it's a sportier GT?
Yes. Well, it is, because that gets the 1.2 litre engine.
Oh, wow.
There's 2 options. You have petrol 1 litre or 1.2 litre 3-cylinder engines with manual or automatic gearboxes. Prices start on the road from $15,595 and they go up to, again on the road, $19,720. Because there is no 1, that used to be 14 something, very low 14s, I think. But the 2 was 14.5. So it's about £1,000 more,
right.
But there's a lot more tech. And then you do things like inflation and all the stuff like that. For it to only have gone up £1,000 is pretty good.
It's not bad. Given I imagine that the 1 was really one of those, here's a low price, let's get you in the door, but nobody really buys it type of trim level. So
it would only be for hire companies, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That and sort of fleet stuff.
This is the latest version of what turns out to be actually quite popular A-segment car. They're one of the few that still actually provide an A-segment car, which helps.
Yes, I was going to say there aren't that many other A-segment cars left.
They have brought it up to date with Kia's Opposites United design language, which apparently means, and because I've read through the information that Kia did provide us, that according to Kia, this harnesses the creative tension generated by the divergent values of nature and modernity to deliver a harmonious whole.
I don't want to be rude. Does that mean it's a slightly rounded off box?
Ish in places.
It does. It's got good headlights. The headlights in the front are really nice.
That actually drags it in line with a lot of the rest of the range. And I think going forward is it's got vertical headlights. That again happens to the Sorento, but we'll discuss that later. It's also got what Kia are calling the tiger nose.
Grr.
It's not as angry looking as the previous version
it isn't.
Or pre-facelift.
It's actually not. It doesn't look as angry as many small cars do these days.
No.
It's definitely not. How do I word this in a way that doesn't sound terribly sexist? It doesn't look girly. You remember the very early Picantos? With very round lights, right? And a real sort of, and very, very Pokemon. Whereas this is far more.
It's a bit more
robot-y. Yeah.
I think it's quite a decent looking design they've got. It's a little bit chunky. It's not aggressive, but there's a bit more attitude to it than perhaps we've seen in A-segment cars. I also think the blue in the colour of the version I drove was absolutely cracking, particularly when the sun was out. It was a gorgeous colour. But across the back as well, they've got the Kia full-width light bar linking up the two side pods.
A Hickablend thing. I've never really worked out how you pronounce that.
No.
It's a challenge for podcasting.
Yes. We didn't use Google Translate again.
No, yeah, exactly. So it's just like a Porsche at the back then.
Yeah, exactly.
The 1980s 911. That's exactly the same. Okay, that's good. That will set everybody's minds at rest.
Yeah, they've all got the right picture.
Yeah.
What I was surprised to learn was that the third generation is exactly the same size as the second generation. Because normally cars get bigger. Don't forget, we're all being told how much cars get bigger all the time, and often they are. But they've managed to keep the exterior exactly the same. It's 3.6 meters long and a smidgen over 1.5 meters wide, excluding door mirrors.
Okay.
They've revamped the inside as well, as one would expect, and they make a lot of noise, do Kia, about how they are moving to more sustainable materials and finishes, and that translates to inside as well. So they're using artificial leather, which was actually in the GT line that I tried.
Pleather.
Yeah.
That used to be called vinyl in the 1970s.
I think it's because it's not so shiny now.
It's less shiny, yeah. And the extra perforation means you don't have to peel yourself off it in the same way.
Quite. And if you go for the 2 trim level, then you get cloth seats, but everything above gets the fake leather.
Cloth seats, infinitely superior, of course.
Well, yes. Surprisingly, the boot is actually not bad. 255 litres. It's a flat floor to it. There are a couple of curry hooks in there. But if you fold the back seats down, you get a surprising 1,010 litres of space.
That's quite large.
Quite a lot, actually. But it is quite a boxy car, so it's fairly easy to do.
That's the joy of A and B segment cars.
Yeah. There's also a little bit of hidden storage underneath the boot floor as well if you lift that up. So there is some adaptability in, like, if you've got a tall plant or something like that. I don't know.
If you've stereotypically taken it to the garden centre.
Yes.
Just dropping straight into stereotypes now, Andrew.
Yeah. Well, I'm not taking it to the tip, so
yeah.
That's next.
You've got to wait till you've got an estate car first.
Yeah. In the rear, there are 2.5, and I think I'm being generous with the half seats. There are 3 seat belts across the back. Realistically, this is a 4-seater with the very occasional 5th person being transported anywhere, hopefully just downhill as well, but we'll get on to that. Space is actually pretty adequate in the back, but this is a A-segment car. You know that space is of a premium anyway, but I could sit right behind me.
Oh, wow.
Cliches are available.
Did controls fall easily to hand as you did so? And also, yeah.
In the back, though, there is a USB-C charging point in the back of the cubby box.
And is that a mat pocket on the back of the passenger seat as well?
It might be, yes.
Yes. Whoa. Truly luxurious. Now, having a USB-C in the back that's something that you don't get on many supposed luxury cars as standard.
No, I know.
And a good one for obviously keeping Sprogs happy, quiet, amused and things. So that's it seems like such a small thing, but actually when it comes to just happy usability as a group of people, that's really quite important.
Yeah, absolutely. Then if we get to the front, there's lots of space up there, actually. I never felt, I know I'm not overly tall, but equally I'm not overly wide or anything like that either. And there's plenty of room, easy to adjust the seats and the steering wheel so I could sit comfortably. Visibility is really good, as one would expect in a vehicle that isn't actually massive. And there's, for a modern car, a lot of glass, actually. Proportions against to the amounts of metals down the side is pretty good, actually. There are some hard plastics, but if you are going to moan about that, what did you expect in a car less than £20,000 new?
Yes, exactly. A car where otherwise has quite a lot of kit for £20,000 new.
Yes. And it's in areas that need a finish to last.
Right.
Or will not actually be touched. So if you are going to go and delve into the footwell and look up behind pedals, good luck to you.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever hear from you.
If you regularly run your fingernails across the top of your dashboard, I think you're probably a little strange, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter, I imagine.
No. The main touch points that you interact with felt perfectly fine. They all felt, obviously we're getting press cars brand new, but they seem to be of material that you thought that's going to last a long while.
Mm.
And I can't imagine that Kia haven't tested the durability.
It's a global car. It's sold everywhere, including places with pretty harsh climates and stuff. You might end up with a Picanto hire car in Greece, for example, that will have had not the easiest of life, and it's still expected to stand up to all of these kind of things, or North Africa or any of these places. I'd expect decently rugged plastics, which might not be the sexiest ultimately, but aren't gonna break, crack, or anything else in the next 10 or 15 years.
And there are actual buttons, dial switches that one can interact with, even for the touchscreen. Actually, then in the segment below the touchscreen for shortcuts to the main menu items, they were actual buttons as well. The interior felt and looked better than I would expect in an A segment. There was definitely the way it was laid out and items in certain areas, you go, wow, I know you've taken this from the Kia
parts bin,
the Kia family. However, by doing that, you've lifted up the quality and the experience in this car.
The sort of driver's door side vent is a good example of that. I'm sure it must come from somewhere else. It's not Picanto specific, but it's just quite interesting and it looks good quality. So I'm sure that comes into it. Similarly, I'm sure the steering wheel is shared with many other Kia models too.
But the buttons on it didn't feel like they were low-rent versions of ones further up the range at all. These are the Kia steering wheel buttons.
I see at the instrument binnacle's a screen as well.
Yeah, it's a 4.2-inch digital screen. You can slightly adjust what is shown on that as you would expect. And then there's, I think it's 12.3-inch touchscreen in the center console, which is your infotainment maps and stuff like that. Well, actually, map-wise, you needed to use CarPlay or Android and use whatever maps you have on that.
That doesn't surprise me at all. And these days, I feel that's a perfectly reasonable approach for just about any level of car.
Yeah, I'm not surprised in an A segment. I think I'm one of the few that will use the maps provided by a car these days. I tend not to have problems with them.
Me neither. It's just habit as much as anything else.
Yeah.
But no, my point really was that that screen, it looks nice, it looks clear, it definitely doesn't look cheap or cheesy.
No, and there was varying types of light that I got. Sometimes it was in bright sunshine, sometimes I wasn't, and it was always legible. It's not like at any point I was having to change how I was looking at it or squint or anything like that. It was all perfectly fine and legible with the information. It's all really clear.
Cool.
Coming through. So that was good.
What else have we talked about? Oh, just I see that there's air conditioning. So manual air conditioning as opposed to climate.
Yep.
Controlled by knobs, dials, and a couple of buttons. That's like perfect layout for me. And then a couple of USB ports and stuff as well.
Yeah, one's for charging and mirroring your phone.
Oh, okay. Brilliant. Tell me about the power.
The power. The mighty 998cc 3-cylinder with the manual is the one I wrote because I had the GT Line version. It actually made quite a nice little rorty noise. I do like a 3-cylinder.
I'm just going to say something here. Yeah, well, so, as do I. But I just want to make people clear that in the notes here, it actually says, which encouraged me to use the loud pedal.
It did.
Do we have to put you in the naughty corner for using phrases like that?
No, because I made the engine go loud.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
There's a 1-litre 3-cylinder in a Kia Picanto, Andrew. I'm going to need some definition of loud here.
So I made it go louder.
You made it louder?
Yeah.
Okay, right.
We're not talking pop bangs whizzes through a sport exhaust or anything like that, but the engine note you could hear more when you press the right-hand pedal. What I will say, though, is it did require you to remember about things like using momentum. It's not the most powerful engine, as one might expect. And there were times where I was changing down and going, yes, of course, I need to change down. It just took me back many years to my first car and some of the cars subsequently to that, about how you need to then just anticipate more. It is momentum. Once you've got the momentum, you just keep going. But to be fair, the gear change was really slick. That gearbox is really good, actually. And the steering and the pedals are all really light because you would expect it to be used in an urban area more often than not, or the second car. And if you are in an urban area, then this is going to be such a doddle to drive around. I mean, with the few times we had to go through bits of towns and villages, it's just so easy. You weren't really thinking about it. At no point did I sort of go, I'm having to do a thing to make it go somewhere. It just did it because it was also so simple. But equally, that doesn't mean that when you're on a faster bit of road, that you're not going, bit out of my depth here, or anything like that. That wasn't the case. So if anybody needs to do long distances in them, I wouldn't worry.
6-speed, I assume?
5.
5? Oh, okay. Oh, of course, like the Hyundai yes, like the Hyundai i10. Coincidentally, yes.
Yes, similar in ethos, possibly.
Yes.
And the fact that it has an actual wheel at each corner meant that the turning circle's minuscule, as you would hope, something this size. But equally, it's just so direct with the steering, point and squirt almost. But you really, if you are carrying people, you need to get used to moving through the gears.
Yeah, I'm sure it's fine.
I would like to try the 1.2 to see what the difference is, which I would imagine might feel quite large. Yeah. And I didn't try the automatic gearbox either, so I don't know on that front.
I know that in the i10, the not totally unrelated Hyundai i10, then the difference between the 1 litre and the 1.2 is quite marked, in that you don't feel you have to get out and push going up steep hills in Portugal in the 1.2, whereas in the 1 litre, it's like, oh boy, okay. You sound like you're actually quite taken with it.
Oh, loved it. I loved it. I'm not saying it reminded me of, but I had similar reaction with the Suzuki Ignis that I had for a week a while ago. That a small car with not a tremendous amount of power could be just great fun.
Yeah.
Because you are using everything it's got. You're not holding back. You're not going, I can only use 40% of what it can do or anything. No, you're just driving along. And I just had this grin on my face, partly through the little silly noise from the engine, because that's what a 3-cylinder does. But it was so easy to use as well. I can see this as a perfect first car if somebody's in the market for something up to 20 grand as a first car. You don't know. Or more realistically, the second car in the family. I mean, if we had that as the second car, I'd probably be going almost everywhere in that rather than the Berlingo.
That would not surprise me.
Because it will just, I can go into parking spaces quickly. I can scoot around. It's got everything, it's got more than enough space for 1-2 people. And it'll do everything you need to do, and it'll be economical to run and all that. I mean, I'm going to bother Kia in some time to have one for a week just to try it out, but for a week to see if some of the foibles, like the lack of power, does that become annoying after more than an hour's journey, or is that actually something you adapt to quite quickly?
It's tricky to
I'd like to experience that one, because it's only an hour. I'm only an hour in these cars, so I really am just giving first impressions and things what I discovered and read about.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I'm a huge fan of small cars, A and B segment, for most of the reasons you've just given, and that it's a lot of fun to drive small cars fast, or try to. Far more fun that than driving fast cars slowly. There's a good place for A-segment cars. We just need people to keep on flipping building them. It's not that people don't buy them, it's just that people don't build them.
Yep.
Okay, so that was the first, the 2 from the day.
Yep.
I imagine you had a fine buffet lunch or something in between times.
There was an expansive lunch, actually much far bigger than I was anticipating when I placed my order, and then oh dear, actually.
Quick reminder that car launches and events are essentially an all-you-can-eat buffet with some driving in between.
Yeah. So then I tried the Sorento.
Oh, he's moving quickly on here. Anyway, tell us about the Sorento. Just to give us a quick reminder of where Sorento sits in the Kia model range and in sort of the whole car ecosystem.
Yeah, Sorento is their largest vehicle that is not electric only. This is a 7-seat SUV, and it comes with petrol hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and a diesel option, one of the few diesel cars you can buy still today, mainly because of the towing fraternity.
I was going to say, it has long been a favourite of the horsey people for its towing capacity, its ability to sling a saddle or some bales in the back.
I look forward to seeing the press release that says the Sorento has won the Tow Car of the Year, or Large Tow Car of the Year again, when it comes round.
It's almost a given, isn't it?
Yes. There are 3 trim levels with this, though, not the 4 like this, the Picanto. So we start at the 2, then we move to the 3, and then finally you have the 4. And prices start on the road from $41,995 and go up to $56,670 depending on the trim level. Now, again, they have changed the design, and again, it is in line with Opposites United. And the magic dust of that has been sprinkled on it. It will now seat up to 7, including the FEV, which is impressive.
Mm-hmm.
But that does mean the FEV's electric-only range is around 34 miles, I think it is.
Yeah. Often the third row, the space under the boot floor for the third row seat is what's sacrificed for the batteries in the FEV versions of SUVs.
And these seats do fold flush into the boot floor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where the compromise is. Like I say, it's one of the few cars that's still offered in diesel form. And with the design, again, we're talking vertical headlights out the front. There is the redesign round the back as well to sort of make it's not mirror the front, but it is to connect them together in terms of looks.
So they both look like they've been designed by the same team.
Yes, absolutely. Certainly in the same building, anyway.
Yeah, okay. That's better than many.
But they've also added some cladding to the subtle cladding, to be fair, but some cladding to the arches and the sills. And with the redesign of the bonnet, this gives it a slightly more rugged appearance. Well, that's what they're aiming for.
We do like some cladding on here.
Yeah, I think from what they've done, it is quite subtle, but it is actually also in areas that might get a bit of a knock as well. It does seem sensible.
See the aforementioned horsey people.
Yes. Also, the interior has been freshened up. This brings in then if anyone's seen them before, but the Hyundai Group large screen that runs from behind the steering wheel all the way across to over where the central binnacle will be. Splits it up between.
Essentially introduced with the Ioniq 5 and then.
Yeah, it's that
developed from there. Yeah.
Letterbox screen that everybody will recognize, and therefore the software on how you use it is, again, anyone who's used any of the new models from the Hyundai Group will be completely familiar with immediately. This also means that there is some touch buttony areas, whilst there is still some dial switches and buttons, but the touch buttony areas mainly are underneath the central binnacle part of the infotainment screen. Again, this is to activate those main menus that you'd want. So you want like the map, home screen, media, that sort of stuff that you would you want to get to as a quick one button touch. But they are it is an area to touch rather than an actual button. You just need to be aware of that. It's also a couple of aspects of the climate control, not the climate control themselves because they're on the dial as well. But it's things like if you want the quick demist of the front windscreen or the rear, then they are touchscreen buttons. But you'll only ever touch those briefly once, usually.
Yeah.
much as I harp on about touchscreens, I don't think that's a major problem.
And it's something you're generally doing before you drive off as well. So.
Yeah.
Well, fingers crossed, unless you're a letterbox bin tank driver.
Yes.
In which case you shouldn't be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This car comes with a head-up display as well, and it's really good. And you're able to adjust where it is positioned. So you can get it either, depending on where you're sitting, either just on the end of the bonnet, or you can raise it up so it's further up. Depending on how you have your driver's seat set up and your own height, you can get it pretty good so that you're looking through it down the road rather than... There's been some cars I've tried where it's very close to or on the bonnet, so you are still looking down. Yeah,
so sometimes that's a case of trying to find the settings to move it, though. You know, that's if you owned it and read the owner's manual. Sorry, not a dip.
No, it's quite right.
If you owned it and read the owner's manual, you would be able to move that up. But sometimes it's nice and obvious as to how you do that to get yourself sorted out, and other times it's like, really? There? Huh?
Yeah.
I think Mini was the first one where I was like, so how do I make this show me something?
Yes.
That was a few years ago, though, that subsequently improved that, yeah.
And I love a head-up display. I just think that's the best way for the driver, certainly, to give just the important information. So it's a direction, the speed that the road is, or the car thinks the road is. That's a different matter. And if you've got, say, something like the cruise control on and it's sensing vehicles in front or something like that.
Yeah, I like that kind of thing. So sort of miss.
Yeah. So the boot houses the third row of seats. There's two of them, but they're two full-size seats. And like I said, they fold flat into the floor. If they're up, though, you get a boot space of a whopping 175 litres. It's what happens when there's a third row.
It's good for a couple of squashy bags, yeah?
Yeah.
Or some shopping bags.
Exactly. When they're down, it gives you 809 litres, so that's far more respectable, as one would expect in a vehicle this size. And then if you fold the seats, the middle row flat, then you get 1,988 litres. I think if you need more than that, you need a van.
I think that's probably going to be up to the bottom of the window line or something. So I'm sure it's actually the usable space is actually probably greater than that.
Anyone who needs to go the tip will be okay, I think. Or like I say, buy a van.
Yeah.
But in that third row of seats, when they're up, there's actually cup holders and air vents that are adjustable by the two people in the back, which I think is a nice little touch as well. They've not just been, there's some seats, shut up, sit back there, and you get like third-hand air when it finally makes its way through. The middle row has absolute acres of space, but the actual base is slidable as well. So you can, if you need to make more space in the boot or for the passengers behind, then that's easily done. So that's quite a good little touch for people trying to actually use the car and live with it. There are two, and I'd say, with the rough guesstimation, and not scientific in any way, 4/5 of a seat in the middle. It's almost a full seat, but not quite. And it looks like you'd be fine doing a fairly decent journey in the back of that. Obviously, the outside seats, lots of room in there.
Obviously, more comfortable in one of the seats in the back as opposed to in the middle.
I would think so, yeah, because you've actually got leg room as well in the boot. It's not like the old-fashioned boot seats where it really was.
Oh, like the ones in my car.
You just stick the child you like the least in. It's not like that anymore.
That third row of seats, if you are traveling with a small child and you want the small child as far back and away from you and as quiet as you want, then a third row of seats is absolutely fantastic for that.
Here comes our correspondent who likes to have passengers in his car.
Well, I know. Anyway, a 3-year-old being put right in the very back where she can have all her own space. And just we did that in May and she had a great time back there.
Everybody is happier.
Yes, definitely.
There's USB-C charging points for the rear, but they're actually in the side bolsters of the back of the seats. So they're not in the bottom of the cubby hole where you'd probably kick the wire or snap off the charger in the socket. They're actually up and to one side, which goes to show some thought has gone in.
especially if you've got a middle passenger.
Yeah. What I felt, just again, I was only in the car for a brief time, but I felt things had been thought through for people using the car, and in each particular area. It wasn't just, we're just thinking about the driver, or we're just thinking about the front passenger. It was the whole user livable experience.
One of the things I noticed from the photos was that you can, if you're in the middle row, you can adjust the front passenger seat much like you can in a limo.
Yes.
If somebody has left the front passenger seat quite far back, then a passenger can move it forward so they have space.
Yeah.
Or more space.
Up front, talking of that, there is a lot of space, even though the transmission tunnel is quite prominent.
Mm-hmm.
You don't feel like you're hemmed in. It's not like a sports car. You're in a cockpit with a sporty car. It didn't feel like that, even though the pictures give a little bit of an impression of that.
Would you say that space is kind of one of the defining characteristics of this?
Yes, and I'd hope so.
Because I think if I did a word count on the number of times you've used the word space in the notes here, then it would be...
Quite high, yes. We're not drinking to that.
Quite high. No. Not at 8:05 in the morning, we're not.
There's lots of, as you would hope for the price of this car and the market they're aiming for with it, there's lots of nice materials and the finishes are lovely and everything felt nice to use. It's so difficult to describe this.
Sorry. I'm going to push you on that because nice is such a generic word. Is there a certain rightness to it?
Yeah, that's probably a better word. It felt right. It didn't feel over-contrived, and it didn't feel like I was sort of going, oh, that's a bit yuck, or that was a bit cheap and nasty, or anything like that. It all felt right. There
was none of the sort of lower end, oh, that's a bit plasticky. Yeah. And I'm not saying doing some hard plastics there, by the way. And on the other end, you're not going, oh, that's a bit pretentious, isn't it?
It felt like a car that they wanted it to be, Kia wanted it to be thought of as nice, but also understand it needs to be used.
Mm-hmm. A little Subaru-ish in the stuff is there. It's good. It's not always the sexiest, but you get a feeling that when it's being used, when it's being put in real life, then it's there, it works, it will last.
I think they went for the best finishes they felt were appropriate.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying, yeah.
I don't think longevity was the primary focus. I think it was, let's make this a not unpleasant interaction, and by the way, let's have it so it works for years and years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's how it felt to me anyway. I didn't encounter any hard plastics on the inside, but I'm sure if somebody was that much of a pervert that wanted to find it, they would find them.
You obviously weren't looking hard enough.
The car I drove was a 4. It was the plug-in hybrid 4 trim. It's the top of the range. And it had a panoramic sunroof. In an already large, well-lit, airy vehicle, this thing, you just pulled the sun blind back. I just, okay, no one can feel any hint of claustrophobia or anything in this car. There's not a chance.
It's like the great outdoors.
Bringing the outside in when I did that.
How was the driving experience in the plug-in hybrid? Was it, I'm assuming you weren't doing burnouts and drifting or anything like that, but was it just fine in normal traffic? Did it feel like it was laboring going up the hills? Did it seem to drink fuel at a ridiculous rate? Anything like that? I know it's very difficult to tell in an hour, especially on the drink fuel at a ridiculous rate one.
Because it was the plug-in hybrid, and I presume I would have felt similar with the hybrid, it's only a 1.6 litre petrol engine. And there's a lot of car that it's trying to shift and a lot of weight as well. But because of the hybridness, any lag when you press the accelerator, that didn't exist.
Okay.
You got the response you wanted when you pressed the accelerator. If you needed to pull off from a junction, you could do that with confidence and comfortably, not think, oh, hang on, I'll press go. Oh, nothing's happened. That car's got awfully close now. Oh, dear. Oh, now we go. No, there was none of that we do get in modern internal combustion engines.
Mm-hmm.
The electricness removed that from the worry. So that was nice. And it was quiet.
And it was seamless in and out. No sort of, no,
I didn't have any of that. It was quiet. It was smooth. Obviously, it was an automatic. The steering's nicely weighted, so it's not overly light, but you didn't think, oh, hang on, few more turns and I'll get it to move or any of that. It just all felt right. And I think that's the good word that you used before when we were talking about the interior. It felt right. The pedals were responsive how I wanted them to be responsive. They weren't too light, weren't too heavy. Crikey, it's going to sound like we're going to call this a Goldilocks car at this rate. Obviously, I had no intention of trying to drive it on the door handles or anything like that, but it can be brisk if you need it to be. There was a couple of times where the road conditions allowed, and I just, okay, let's see how quickly does it respond. And it was great. I would have no hesitation using this all the time. And I felt confident that even if I filled it with the cracked windscreen horde and the mountains of stuff they feel they need to take with them, it would absolutely deal with that, no problem at all. Which
is really one of the things it's meant for. I assume you didn't do any off-road driving or like
it does have,
driving, but I see that it looks like there's a mode switch for different modes.
There's terrain stuff it can do, but no.
Getting your horse box out of a grassy field mode, these kinds of things.
No, but there was nowhere to do that, and I didn't feel I wished to deviate from the path they had outlined for us in case I scratched anything.
Yes, damaging the press cars is always bad. Doing it at an event like this where there's a limited number of cars and it's needed the next 15 minutes is even worse.
Especially as journalists are such dreadful gossips.
Well, yes, there is that too. Overall, I mean, I hear the words nice, I hear the word space. This seems like something that you really quite like.
Yes, I've driven the previous generation and I like that because I found it a relaxing and smooth vehicle to use. I think if you've got a family, largish family, or you need a lot of space, or you regularly shift up to 7 people, and it's in your price bracket or your company car options, I think you need to go and check these out and have a look and a poke around, particularly if you've not tried a Kia before or anything from the Hyundai group, because I think you're going to be really surprised at how good the quality is of the product.
There is a difference between the original Kia Pride and this.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you've been badge snobbing, put it to one side and go and have a poke around. You will be, I am prepared to bet you will be pleasantly surprised.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can barely get onto the bottom of the Audi range for the cost of that top spec, for example. So it's about choosing what's important to you, really, isn't it? But yeah, it's definitely one of those cars that when people ask us about these things, I tend to say, well, make sure you check out these ones. How important is the badge to you? If it's not that important, then go for these and you could, get a really good car for a fraction. Or you can get an even better car for less than the price of some of the others.
Yep, 100%.
Pretty positive day out by the sounds of it, not just because of lunch.
Yeah, I enjoyed both of the cars for different reasons, but I like them both.
Yeah, totally opposite ends of the spectrum. And I always find it funny that there's just as much pleasure to be derived from both sides of the car, just depending on your use case and stuff.
Yeah, I just want to take a moment to thank Kia for inviting me along to try the cars. And as for sharing more about these, in a few months' time, I will be pestering them to ask for a week's time with each of the cars so I can give you a more fulsome and rounded review of them rather than just an hour's drive and my initial impressions.
Well, thanks, Andrew. Thank you to Kia as well. And yeah, we'll have a few more little extra special editions coming over the next few weeks, I think. In the meantime, don't forget that between now and the next time, you can give us any feedback and share your thoughts of the show at Motoring Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Please don't forget to leave a review and rate on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or whatever your podcast app lets you do such a thing. Andrew, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is to search for Cracked Windscreen on Mastodon, or if you are a LinkedIn user, if you search for me under my proper name, I can be found there. Alan, if people would like to get in touch with you personally, what's the best way for them to do that?
best way to get in touch with me is pretty much any of the socials used by people with grey hair, or just over 35, I guess, where on all of them I am at AJP Bradley. That's BRADLEY. We'll be back before very long, but until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clues.
And safe motoring.